everybody, this is Daniel here with Propelio again, and today's show is going to be covering one of the biggest things that we all need to know about. We show up on those appointments, we're going on those appointments, but if we're not walking away with contracts, those appointments mean nothing. They're just practice. We need to get you from practice to actually doing this business by getting those contracts and getting out the door. So we're going to go over 3 common objections that the sellers will have and how to overcome them when we come right back from this short commercial break.
Propelio TV is sponsored by Noble Mortgage and Investments, Batch Skip Tracing, Think Multifamily, CreativeCashflow.com, and Lifeonaire.
Overcoming seller objections. I love it.
Yeah, I mean, there is fear in all of us,
Right.
and there's a lot of people that want to be in this business and don't have that person-to-person experience of being able to just go up there and open up and bring that conversation to the table, that not only a conversation, but a conversation that ends up with a contract.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of just fear, and I was definitely one of those people. Like, whenever I first got started, my wife and I would go on all the appointments together because she was far more social and she could sit there and talk to the sellers. And I'm just like, here's a number. Like, I couldn't handle the social interaction.
I love how, like, you could say she is far more, and that still sounds like an underestimate. What's the word? Underestimate. Yeah. Like, cause
It doesn't adequately. It doesn't adequately.
Yeah.
Because I am a massive introvert. For everybody that's watching that just does not see this, I am a massive introvert. Right. And then whenever my wife is on those appointments, she's the social butterfly. So that is kind of how I broke into going on appointments, because I was deathly afraid to go. But there's definitely one thing that I knew, and that was if I or someone that was good went on those appointments, there was no way I could ever be in this business. So I had to figure out how to overcome that.
Yeah, and it's interesting because that, we talk about on Propelio how many times shows tie into other shows. Like, literally last week with Grant on Grant's Teacher, we talked about finding a partnership and how to really find your yin to your yang.
I remember that one.
Real quick, before we move on, if you do like these shows with Daniel, he has an entire playlist on YouTube, and I will put the link right here. Right there, just click that if you want to see the playlist of Mondays with Daniel. So that'll be on YouTube.
So let's dive in here for a second. Let's start looking at this. And I picked out 3 that I saw most often. I was predominantly a pre-foreclosure investor, but the ones that I picked out, I tried to make sure were outside of just that specific realm. So I'm going to start off with, let's say, number 1. Especially in pre-foreclosure, the seller has this problem of, I don't know where I'm going to go. You might be sitting there trying to negotiate price, and you might be thinking that, oh, they don't like my price because they're being standoffish, when in reality, you just need to get them to open up and explain a little bit more, because they may like your offer, but you're not asking the right questions.
Right.
And what I found very often is, like, where are you going to move? So if I just preload my memory bank with, these people are often in a situation where they don't understand what's going to happen after they sell. They know that they want to sell it, because the only reason they haven't done it, though, is because they haven't solved that piece of the puzzle.
And when it goes back, it's, again, I don't want to repeat myself, but I will, like, how much everything just ties into each other. Like, this is very much like, you got to build your avatar. So if you could build your avatar of this person you're trying to go to or reach, and then just like, okay, what are those situations? Like you said, one of them is, I need a roof. Where's that roof going to be?
So I like how you brought that up, and I'm actually going to pivot this a little bit just to address that, because I think it's very important. What so many people here may not realize was, when I started doing pre-foreclosure investing, a big chunk of my initial push into that specific marketing strategy was building an avatar. I never looked at it like that, but I completely understand that that's what it was. I sat in front of a large whiteboard. You know I love the whiteboard. I've got a big whiteboard up here. I sat in front of the whiteboard and I just wrote out, what do they want? What do they need? And what's happened? And I just kind of went through and I was like, well, what do they want? Well, they want some level of security. They want to be able to pay their bills. They want this. Well, what do they need? what's happened to them, what's going on, what are their fears. And I really just started just mind dumping all these possible thought processes. And then one of the columns that I threw up on the board was, what are the objections? What might they object to? Well, I owe more than my home is worth, or I was told that I could do a loan modification, or I started going through all the potential objections. And then I started going through, what could they say that would stop this conversation from continuing? And then what could I ethically and morally say back to push them down a path that would probably be better for them? Because a lot of times, like, I'd meet a pre-foreclosure investor and they'd be like, not an investor, but a pre-foreclosure seller, and they'd be like, well, I'm doing a loan mod. Well, I know for statistically proving that is a very bad path for them to go down, but we could dual path it. So I learned how to start dual pathing stuff. So that's a side tangent. The avatar is extremely important. If you're out there doing probates, you're out there doing pre-foreclosure, doing vacant homes have their own avatar as well. So I started looking through all of those and trying to really boil down, what are these people's fears? What are their desires? What are their objections? And how do I overcome all that?
Right.
So this comes back to I don't have a roof over my head, like, I really want to sell you the house. And what I'd see with the seller is they would just sit there and I'd be like, okay, so if we're coming in and I can get you $78,000 for the house, would that sound good? And in body language and stuff like that was giving me the feedback that yes, they were okay with the price that I was offering them, but I wasn't getting a yes. And, I'd say something like, well, if we were able to move forward at $78,000, would that work? And they'd kind of, without even just kind of nod. And I'm sitting here thinking, okay, that's a nonverbal cue that yes, they're okay with that, but then they would still be hitting the brakes. So I would have to, and over time, you learn what the objections are. So if I build that avatar out first, then I can just start going through that list of objections. Well, what are your fears? Is it that, that you're leaving behind some memories? Is it the possibility that, we're changing school districts? Is there a chance that you just, really like this neighborhood? Is it because you don't know where you're moving? It's, so if I know what all of these possible objections are, I can do what I just did with you and just start going boom, boom, boom.
Now, would you do that like in the course of the building rapport phase, or do you wait until there's a number, there's a contract on the table, or
I'm listening the whole time for cues, like the whole time, because if I have trained my brain up front, it's just like with anything. Like if I'm going into a real big meeting, even up to today, I'll spend a good 24 to 48 hours before that big meeting that I know I'm about to have. And I will play through 1,000 different scenarios in my head of, okay, what could they want? What could their objections be? How could I tailor this conversation to get a mutually beneficial agreement to the table? So whenever I'm sitting down with them, I've already thought through, because I've done so many pre-foreclosures, I've already thought through 9 different primary objections that I'm going to hear from these people. And if I'm talking to them and I'm unable to get them across the line up front, I will just start throwing the objections that I know of out there. And I'll tailor those based upon the interaction up until then, the rapport building phase. Like, I'm not there to use these techniques to take advantage of them. I'm there to use these techniques to open them up to get us all down the road into a better path. So going back, one of the biggest ones that I saw was they had no clue of where to go, and they were extremely embarrassed to think that they were about to be homeless. And they didn't want to just sit there and say, if I sell this house, I'm homeless. The reality of it is, though, is whether you sell it or not, you're about to be homeless. So how can we solve this problem for you? And we would find that often these people would have solutions. And once that solution was created, their attitude would change. You could feel the weight just drop off of their shoulders. They would just relax.
Now, do you think a lot of that is, a lot of the situation of the why they're in that situation is because they've done the ostrich, head in the sand, and they just don't want to address it? So having someone like yourself at the kitchen table, and then if you watch the callback to the episode with Casey and I with Tony the closer, or if you watch Great See Something, don't sit on the other side of the table, sit beside them so you're working with them. And here I am plugging everything else, and I forgot my point. But you're working with them, and then it's easier for them to come to a solution. Do you think that's just because you know what I was trying to say.
I definitely get what you're trying to say, and one of the things that you pointed out is something I've never done, which is intriguing to me, because I'm not trying to sit here and pretend like I'm the god of negotiating or anything like that. I've just learned what worked for me.
Right.
And like I was telling pre-show to some of the people behind scenes, was like, you know, I've got 2 to 3 people that I'm typically really good at creating the rapport with and getting across the closing table, but there's 2 or 3 other personality types that it's like, if I show up on that appointment and that personality type's there, the probability of me getting it across the table is slim to none. So where I've learned is the ones that I'm good at, and then whenever I've realized that I'm going to be going with someone that I'm not good at, I'll try and pitch hit someone else because I know that I'm not good at closing that. Where I find the people that are extremely good at closing are the ones that can say, I don't care what personality type it is, I can fit that mold and create the sale. But on this side, like I'll sit down with the seller and just like you're talking about, we're trying to work together. I don't make it combative. I try to be very, very open. It's just like, hey, here's like the 9 or 10 different things that we could be going at. And what I would like to start with here is going back to I don't have the place to move. So if I'm sitting down with them and I can see that the verbally and, you know, the nonverbal cues that I'm getting back are telling me they're okay with my price, then I know that there is something else that is stopping them. I'm going to deal with the other 2 after this first one, but the first one I'm going to hit is I don't have anywhere else to move. And if I can't get them to just flat out tell me that, I've already got the avatar built in my mind, and I'll just start going through the objections that I can think of, and I'll be like, well, if we're okay at 78,000, what is causing you a little bit of concern about moving forward here? And you'll see them a lot of the times just say something along the lines of, I just need to think about it. I just need to think about it means that they are not okay with the terms that have been laid out so far. There is something that is still blocking that path to get them to where you want them to go. And like we were discussing, and we can use this, we just need to open that gate for them. They're ready to push forward. I just need to open the gate and let them come in.
You and Tommy and your judo. Y'all just love judo. That was the conversation, the gates. So anyway.
So with the gates, like, I now know that if I ask you that open-ended question, what is stopping you from moving forward right now? And I get the response back of, I just need to think about it. That is a very good cue that there's an objection that is being held by this seller that they are not disclosing to me. So if they're not disclosing it to me, there's several reasons why that might be. And what I find in this situation is they are likely just embarrassed, scared. They're in a really difficult point in their life. They just went through a loss of a job, loss of a family member. There is something going on in their life that they never planned on. And whatever that speed bump hit has put them in a bad spot where they're not making decisions.
And it could also just go back to the point I was trying to make before about ostrich head in the sand, just like, I'm just not going to address it. Even though I understand there's a lifeboat, there's a life vest, there's a lifeline right here, I'm not going to address it because I haven't been motivated enough to grab it.
And that is the key to the negotiation piece from what I've found, is you need to figure out what all of them are. They're wanting to grab that lifeboat, but there's something that has got them scared to do it. So if I can't get them to tell me directly, because that is a question I'll ask that open-ended question. I'll say, what is holding you back from moving forward with this today? And if I get them to come back, and it'll very often be this exact phrase, it's just like, I need to think about it more. If they tell you exactly what the problem is, that's great. That makes your job so much easier. They can just be flat out like, oh, well, I'm just not really sure where I'm going to go allow my dog. You know, that could be one of the reasons. They got to figure that piece out before they say yes to you. It's not that they don't want to say yes to you. They just need to figure out, well, I have a pit bull. I'm going to have to move into an apartment. I'm not allowed to take pit bulls to an apartment, but this pit bull has been my dog for the last 8 years. There's no way I'm going to get rid of my pit bull. How do I solve this problem? They're saying no to you because they're trying to figure out what to do with the pit bull. You've got to figure out how to pull that out of them. So the question I'll hit them with is, boom, what is holding you back from moving forward right now? And they will commonly say, I just have to think about it more. That is a very good cue that there's a roadblock in their way and you need to open that gate. So then if I can't get them to tell me the problem, since I've spent the time up front building out that avatar, what are all the possible objections that this person could have to me? I will then start addressing them directly instead of indirectly. Indirectly would be asking the open-ended question, what's wrong? That gave them the easy out of just pushing it to the side. So then I'll become much more direct. Well, are you considering loan modifications? I might, depending on how the conversation's going, I'll lead with different ones because I'm trying to feel out the one that I think that they're holding their hat on. Are you thinking about loan modification? Well, not really. I know that those don't work. All right. Is it something possible, or is it that you're concerned about not having the money to move, or you're really stressed about getting this packed? Because that might be something they're thinking about. It's like, wow, I've got to get this thing packed and I don't want to deal with all that. It's like, well, are you stressing about getting it packed? Okay, that's not the problem. So then I'll just boom. And I've already come up with 12, 20, 15, 30 different possible objections. If I can't get them to tell me which one it is, I'll just start boom. And the one that'll hit often with pre-foreclosures is, or any other situation where these people are in a distressed state and they're still living in the house where they're strapped financially, they don't know where they're going to move. So how are we going to solve that for them? All right, so I've gotten you to the point of how I'm getting these conversations opened up, and I start trying to pull this information out because sometimes they're going to be very reserved with that information and not want to give it to you. Then how am I going to move through? I go through the objections. Right. All right, and now I've hit on I don't know where to move. All right, well, let's find out how much equity you're getting back at closing, because at this point in time, they may have not disclosed that to me. I offered them $78,000, and they're at a point in time where $78,000 is the best offer they feel like they're going to get, and they're willing to accept that offer from me. But I find out that after that they're only going to net $1,600 at closing, because I'll ask them, I was like, all right, well, are we getting any money back at closing? And they'll be like, well, I think so. Well, I was like, well, how much is what is your principal balance, and what are your arrears? What does all that look like? All right, so you got a principal balance of 60, and you've got arrears of 12. That hits us up to 72. I'm offering 78. That looks like about 6,000 in between. But I've also got a second lien for the air conditioning system that you put in, which takes your final net down to probably around $2,000. Is that $2,000 going to be enough to get you moved? All right, so now I'm not, the money is not the problem anymore. Now I can start addressing the move. All right, well, if the net, let's say they're going to net $35,000 at closing, obviously the money piece is not the direct problem, but it might be an indirect problem because they don't have the money to move now. All right, so I've got to figure out how do I get them moved without them, I got to figure that piece out. So some of the things I'll do was, all right, you're going to get $35,000 back at closing. I understand that you don't have the money to move right now. You're going to try and find some place good to live in. But if they're getting a big chunk of equity back at closing, I'll structure my contract to say that I will give them a seller's temporary leaseback. And what that seller's temporary leaseback is going to do is allow the seller to stay in the home post-closing for a defined period of time, so that way they can put some of that $35,000 into their back pocket, use that money to go out and secure a new house, wherever they're going to go, apartment, friend, whatever they got to do, moving truck, whatever their problem is, they've got money in their back pocket. And where I wanted to make clear that I defined was a little bit of that money in their back pocket. Very rarely, if ever, will I ever close on a pre-foreclosure property where the seller is getting equity back at closing and give them that full piece of equity at closing, because that's my carrot.
Yeah, I was about to call you out on that because I heard put that 35 in your back pocket. I was like,
oh no,
that's not Danny Moore I know.
No,
Yeah.
Because I've been burned by that.
Well, think about it. I mean, well, not you think about it, but think about it. If somebody's in a pre-foreclosure situation, that's because they haven't been making payments to somebody else who owned the note. So in a seller's lease back, you essentially own the house, and you're not owning the note. Well, anyway, it's the same
own
logic.
The house now.
You own the house, and you're expecting them to pay rent. They're not.
Exactly.
So if you give them the full 35, they're like, cool, I can stay here another 3 to 6 months till you get the JP to kick me out.
And that is exactly why, and this is a huge nugget for those that don't realize this. If I'm doing a seller's temporary lease back and they're getting any equity at all at closing, I will retain a very large portion of that equity. And in this particular scenario, we're using the number 35,000. I would sit down and say, all right, well, it looks like you're going to be netting around $35,000 at closing. What I'd like to figure out is, like, we're going to need to get you into a new home. We're going to need to get you a mover. We're going to look at lease deposits, security deposits, first and last month's rent, plus the cost to move. We're looking around maybe $4,000 is what it's going to take for you to move. What I can do is we'll go ahead and buy the house, and I'll put $4,000 in your pocket right now, and I'll leave the remaining $31,000 in escrow. And the second you move out, you will get a check cut from escrow for the remaining $31,000. And they'll start getting a little timid. It's like, oh, well, what if I don't get my money? What if I don't get this? And I was like, well, we'll put it all in writing. This is not ambiguous whatsoever. We're going to go ahead and just clearly define all of this. And I'll have a seller's temporary lease that's already written out, and it'll say, I'm going to purchase and close at this date. I will lease this property back to you for 14 days past closing. 14 days is more than enough time for you to go out, secure storage, secure a moving company, and get you a new lease. That $4,000 is there to cover that. That will give you the ability to get moved out. And the lease will clearly define that in the event that you need to stay behind a little bit, that's okay. I understand. Things happen in 14 days. I don't want that to scare you. But at the day 14, you're going to have to start paying me a per day charge for every day you're here that past 14 days. I try to make that number slightly more expensive than what I'd get a decent hotel for. So if in the area a decent hotel is $125, then I'll put it at $150 a day is what you're going to pay me for every day that you stay in this house behind. Because what I don't want to end up in is a scenario where this seller is now cash rich and house poor and try and fight me over that house that we had a clear, defined agreement on beforehand, because now I've given them the ability to start fighting me and causing me all kinds of problems.
And obviously, if your house is a different price point, or 150 times 300 is still less than like a rental or a lease, or not a lease, your mortgage payment, then it's going to be more.
Yep.
You know, you've got to make it to where it's whatever the daily rate is going to be more than what.
So if the mortgage rate would be $3,000 a day, it would have to be $3,000 a month.
Right.
It'd have to be very least $100 a day. But I want that number to be large enough to hurt,
to scare them,
not to be large enough that they're not going to sign the paper. But I need to make a logical reason why that number is there. And I was like, basically, at this point in time, I've turned this home into a hotel, and this is about what you would pay for a hotel. And so this is where I'm gonna have to start charging you, because my goal here is to not lease this back to you. The only reason I'm leasing this back to you is to put you in a situation where you're not so stressed that you can handle the moving and you can handle securing a new lease in a feasible amount of time. What I'm going to do with the remainder of that $35,000, the $31,000 held in escrow, is I'm going to put a clause here in the special provisions that states that if you refuse to vacate this property in a feasible period of time, we've given you the 2 weeks for free. I'll give you a per diem charge day past that. I make sure that the per diem charge is good enough that I'm happy with it. But in the event that you fail to pay me those per diems and or move out in a timely fashion, I can use the retained capital in escrow to pay for my evictions, to pay for any damage done to the home, to pay for any legal suits incurred, to pay for disposing of anything left behind. When I purchased this property, you agreed to take all these personal belongings out. I don't want to show up here in 2.5 weeks and see that you've left this property trashed. So this is being held in escrow as a security deposit on that lease for these causes, and I clearly define them. And very often I'm able to get that seller to agree. So that's scenario one. I'm going to hit one more scenario of a solution that we can come up with for these people before we go to the first commercial break. And that is going to be number two. There is no money coming back at closing.
Right.
This is where we have to start using that creative juice. We have to really start figuring out what's going on here. So I'll immediately ask, well, do you have any good friends or whatever that you might be able to roommate up with, and kind of that'll help you get back on your feet again? Because I can tell already that you're the type of person that's going to go out there and bounce back from this. And I'll try and build their confidence up and give them the words that they need to hear to have that confidence established, because they just went through a really tough period of their life. So I'll try and rebuild that confidence and get them to where they're ready to go back down the road. And I'll say, well, do you have any friends? No. All right, well, if they don't have any friends, I was like, all right, are you bringing in any income right now? And I'll just, I'll start trying to define what that income is. And then from that income, try and figure out what possible solutions we can come up with. I'll suggest to them an RV. You can get like an older RV or a decent RV for cash for a couple grand. Or if you're financing one, like you can get one for $100 to $150 a month. It's really nice. Well, if you can afford $100 to $150 a month, you still need some place to put that. Let's say we find you a solid RV park. Kick back to the last week's show with Vance. We find you a solid RV park that, let's say, lot rent's $350 a month. Well, now your total payment's $600 a month versus what you were paying, which was $1,200 a month. I cut your payments in half. Can you afford $600? Well, I'll get them to start seeing solutions. And if ultimately they just come down to it and there's no solutions whatsoever, we really just have to have a heart to heart. And it's like, why are you not working? That's one of the main things I'd want to figure out first is like, why are you not working? We need to get you employed. There's no options that I can foresee in life that doesn't end up with you being homeless unless you're willing to work. You're gonna need to find some way of exchanging your time for money so that way you can pay for your living costs. Some people need to be hit flat in the head hard. It's like, I'm sorry, you've not had a job in 2 years, you're gainfully employable, you're refusing to go out and work, you're just riding the system for whatever it can be ridden for. Well, right now what you're looking at is if you either sell, and I could possibly net you $500 to $800 at closing because the deal is that tight. These are the points where there's no equity really to be had. We're going real thin. I'm like, well, let's see if we can get you $1,000 at closing. And that's just my way of saying, help you get down the road. But you need to find a job. You need to get your life back in order. So those are some thoughts on how to handle overcoming the people saying, I don't have somewhere else to go. If they've got leasebacks, help them out with that. If they haven't, or if they're, you can set them up with a leaseback so you can help them out with that. Or if there's absolutely no funds coming at closing and have no other options, start running through the list of possibilities. Is there a couch you can crash on? Is there some friends? Is there some family? I really hate to say this, but I've had to do it myself. You know, can we live in the car for a little bit? I know that stings, but I've been in the same boat, man. I went through foreclosure when I was 14. I know what it felt like. You know, let's figure out what we can do here. And you really just have to help them overcome that hurdle. But I think the biggest piece of this first segment was how to get to that.
Yeah. And then, but ultimately, just remember that real estate is about being creative. Like in a situation where there was a $35,000 nugget for them to get back, and they are taking $4,000, and they're like, what now? Like, if they need to come back to you and be like, look, hey, I need more money to hire a mover, to hire storage. It's like, okay, well, instead of giving you the money flat out, how about I pay for it out of your funds, et cetera, et cetera. So it's just about being creative, because again, you don't necessarily want to give them the money because that's not guaranteed they're going to pay for it. But if I pay for the storage, if I pay for the mover, but under written agreement that it's coming out of the 31 that's coming out, it's just about getting creative. Like you said, those creative juices.
I love how you put that, because let's say it's not a scenario where they're putting 35,000 out. Let's just say they are getting 4,000 and 4,000 only. I'm aware enough as a real estate investor to realize that if I just give them that 4,000, that money's already been spent on movers, rents, deposits, and all that other stuff. And if this person that is financially irresponsible now has $4,000 in their pocket, now 800 of it automatically disappears to, oh, I'm going to go to the corner store and buy bubble gum and Snicker bars, and then all of a sudden it's just gone.
Or I'm going to Choctaw because I'm going to, maybe this time, Choctaw is local casino, by the way. Maybe this time my luck will change, and that 800 will turn into 8,000, and all of a sudden that 4,000 is now only 3,200.
And that's the fear. So what I'll do is exactly what you said, and I love that you brought that up. We'll hold that 4,000 back in escrow, and we'll start paying directly to the movers, start paying directly back to the leaseholders, because if that money just goes straight into their hand, it can liquidate really fast. And you got to be careful of that, because the last thing you want is to deal with a seller that has burned through the money that they're supposed to use to move, and now you're having to evict them from the home, and you don't have any security to back you up on that. Leasing back to a seller, especially a seller in pre-foreclosure, is a risky business, and I have to be very cautious to anybody out there that's listening to this right now.
Before we go to break, I just want to give a quick shout out to one of our viewers on YouTube. You'll like this. Forgive the name, Bator Salon. He was just saying that, or he or she has been saying, been watching Propelio for two months, 2 weeks, and already got 2 contracts. So
oh, wow.
That's badass. Love seeing that.
Great job, man.
So Tom, you want to take us a break, and when we come back, what's the second thing we're going to be talking about?
The second thing we're going to talk about, let's go ahead and which one do you want to talk about? Number 1, I don't like the money. Like I want more money. I want more money. I want more money, because the sellers, you'll find that one seller that's just like, I know the home's only worth 100,000, but I want 120,000 for it no matter what. So that's another objection that I get quite often. And another one that I'll get is going to be, we're going to talk about that one next.
Yeah, so when we come back, we're going to be talking about the objection of I want more money.
Right.
So stick around. We'll be right back.
The Propelio Academy, an all-in-one education resource for training in wholesales, subject to wraps, short sales, flips, rentals, BRRRR, property management, and more. Go to propelio.com/academy to get your scholarship today. Propelio.com. What does Propelio offer? Lead generating websites, access to true MLS comps, off-market lead lists, and deal alerts. Get them all today at Propelio.com.
And we're back. Thanks so much for watching Propelio TV Mondays with Monday Mentorship with Daniel, whatever it's called. Today's episode, we've been talking about three seller objections. The first one was, hey, I got no place to go. And sometimes you actually have to talk about getting to that, and the seller in the ostrich in the sand. So we talked about finding them place to go and really getting them moved out. Now, Mr. Moore.
Let's talk about the seller that's just like,
I want more money.
I want more money. I want more money. It's like, well, you're not really being feasible in this scenario. It's like, we can show you very clearly that retail sales
I got a nugget.
Are showing your property is going to sell for around $100,000, yet you're adamant that you're going to sell it for $120,000. What makes you feel like that this home's going to sell for $120,000? There's no wiggle room here.
Yeah. So here's a golden nugget for everybody that's watching. If you're new or newish or fairly new, if you consider yourself a new beginner, novice investor, if you haven't learned this already, there is a different set of reality that how sellers live in than what is actually real. And you have to learn that, and you have to learn to negotiate around that. And I think that's what we're talking about.
Yeah, we all have our own version of reality, so I have to immerse myself in their reality and figure out what is causing that reality to live with inside them, and then start correcting that reality to what's about to happen. Because let's just use the very clear scenario of the home is just point blank definable through multiple comps, through just experience, $100,000 house. Mm-hmm. And the seller's like, 120. I know I can get 120 for it. The home 4 houses down sold for 120. I'm not taking a dime less than 120. I'm not letting you rip me off. I appreciate that. I truly do. Well, let me break this down for you and show you why that one sold for a 120, because it most definitely did. But we also need to take into consideration that it was 1,700 square feet, 3-bed, 2-bath, 2-car garage. Your home, sir, is 1,400 square foot with a 1-car garage. While y'all are only 4 houses away from each other, that 300 square foot and a half a garage smaller means quite a bit in this market. Now, let me show you what homes similar to yours are selling for. So I'll pull out the computer, and this is how we'll start breaking down this objection. If I'll start trying to use data. I'll depend upon the person. Are they a left brain person, they're wanting to see data and facts, or are they a right brain person and they're emotional? Which piece are they hanging on? Are they hanging on the fact that their study shows that it's worth 120? Well, if their study shows that it's worth 120, I will pull out a computer and I'll start running comps with them right there. I'll just be like, hey, take a look at this. This is the data that I'm looking at. Can you show me data to support your 120 claim? And if you can show me the data to support your 120 claim, I can possibly move my offer around, because I definitely want you to have a fair deal out of this, and I need a fair deal out of this. I'm definitely here to make money. This is how I support my family. But under no circumstances do I want to take advantage of you. I want you to get the most out of this that you can get, and I want to get the most out of this that I can get. So let's sit down and take a look at this. Pull out the comps. Show me a value to support this home. All right, well, yeah, that one did sell for 140, and I'm glad you pointed that out. Do you see those stainless steel appliances? Do you see those granite countertops? Do you see those hardwood floors? Do you see that beautiful redesigned interior where they open these walls up?
That's exactly what I want to do with your house.
But let's look at the budget for that. And then, because then they might start going, well, you can get that done for $8,000. And I was like, well, let's really start defining these numbers. And I'll like, how much do you think flooring for this house is going to cost? You've got 1,400 square foot here. Let's just go to Home Depot on our phones or on this computer here, and I'll start building out a repair estimate for them right then and there. And they will really quickly realize that, wow, maybe there is something to it. So I'll start using data on the left brain people to start pulling them away from that thought process of, I've already done my due diligence. I know I can get 120 for it. You're trying to rip me off. You're a scam artist. Well, I'm not a scam artist. I'm not trying to rip you off. I'm actually the 19th person you've talked to, because nobody's giving you 120. And the reason nobody's giving you 120 is not because we're trying to rip you off. It's because at 120, I'm likely to lose $8,000. I'm not in this business to lose $8,000. If I buy it for $100,000, I'm looking to make about $7,000 to $9,000 when it's all net, net, net. On these smaller properties, the nets aren't that big.
And because we love to give other shows shout outs, Grant teach something, that does not make business sense.
I love that. And so I'm going to throw a real quick side nugget out there. an article that I wrote on Propelio.com's blog a couple years back was how I offer sellers $1 for their house and get the contract almost every time. I had a really high close rate with that delivery of offering them $1 for their house. And what I would try and do is Grant did it in a very different way, and I love Grant's way of doing it. But what I would do is sit down with the seller, and once the rapport was built and I had that conversation flowing and going, I'd say, and this is what we're going to call the what if close. What if I was able to give you, for this same house that he's wanting $120,000 for, I would start the conversation out. If I can feel that the rapport is built there and we're doing a good job there, what if I could give you, let's say, $180,000 for this house and have it closed in the next 5 days? I just offered him $60,000 more than what he was anticipating. I was just like, man, what would you say if I could come up and by the end of next week have this closed and we can do $180,000 at closing? Boom. Boom, it's diffused. The problem's diffused. It's no longer combative. I want my 120. I want my 100. It's not the combative. I open them up and boom. Now they're like, what do you mean? What are you talking about? I'll try not to make it so big that it's not possible, but I make it big enough that they're like, what? What are you talking about here? And I'll say, well, what if we did like 160, 150, 180? And I'll get them to open up and be like, well, hell yeah, I'd do that. We can sign right now. I want to get that we'll sign right now out of them. And then where I pull back and I'm like, as much as I'd love that, that would never make business sense to me. I would lose so much money to doing that. My wife would divorce me. I'd be completely out of a house and home. There's no way I could ever do that. If I could, I would. I really want to do that. But ultimately, like, if I could offer you $1 for your house, that is what I would try to go for, as long as it made sense to both of us, because I am trying to support my family. It doesn't make business sense for me to pay $160 for it. I like how Grant says that. But there's no way you would ever accept $1 for this house, because that doesn't make business sense to you either. So we need to find a point somewhere where it makes business sense to you as well as business sense to me, that we can meet in the middle. And as I know, there's no way you would ever accept $1 for this house. I know there's no way you'd ever accept 20, 30, 50,000 for this house. But where is a point where we can meet that makes sense for me, where I can make some money and it makes sense for you, and you can get this home sold at a reasonable price that fits your budget? And what I just stopped is I just left them a $50,000 offer on the table. I said, I know you'd never take 1,000. You wouldn't take 10, 20, 30,000. And you probably wouldn't even take 50,000, but where are you at? And I just stopped at 50 grand. And while that delivery was very just nonchalant, I was able to get the negotiation essentially opened up at the $50,000 mark. And while I'm not trying to take advantage of this person, they're way off the other end of the spectrum at a 120. So if they're way off the other end of the spectrum at 120, I need to be way off the other end of the spectrum at the other side, because they're planning on doing what? What are we going to do?
Yeah.
Go to the middle somewhere. So if I'm really trying to go for 100 and they're at $120, and I'm like, well, I really need to be at 100. Well, they're going to try and hit me in the middle at 110. I can't do 110. So I'll start out at the 50. And I'll just be so far low that I'll try and get them to come down. And then if I can't get them to come down, I bring up the numbers. I start doing the comps. I start doing all that. That's my left brain seller.
But again, when you have something like that and you do say, well, I mean, 20, 30, 50, and then you're like, I'm at 50.
I don't ever say I'm at...
Right,
okay.
but I'm just saying, it's like, well, that's where I want to be. And what if they're like...
I don't say that either. That setup is a very clearly defined one. I just make it sound like 50's not my offer.
So you make it sound like it's just kind of like a throwaway comment.
Yeah, but that's literally where I pause.
Where you haven't made an offer at all. Because I can just see somebody going, we're not even in the same ballpark.
Yeah, because
we're not even in the same sport.
Because I don't make the offer. What I do is I'm like, I'd love to offer you $1 for the house, but you'd probably kick me out the door screaming and yelling, and that would never make business sense to you. But I prepped that $1 offer. I'm rewinding. I'm pulling out a scenario. Yeah. I prepped that $1 offer with saying, what if I offered you 180? They were happy with that. But I said it wouldn't make business sense to me. I'd lose my business. I'd lose all my money. There's no way I could ever do that. And then I flipped that right back around on them, because I've created that empathy path for them to realize why I'm not offering 180. And I hit them with that, well, I could offer you $1 right now and that'd make me really happy, just like 180 to make you really happy. But that doesn't make any business sense to you at all. You'd probably kick me out the door. My wife would love me, but you would absolutely kick me out the door, because that would just not make any sense to you. That would be a very bad deal for you. And there's no way you'd ever even accept 20, 30, probably even $50,000. And I say probably even $50,000. And then boom, silence.
Got it.
And now what I've done is taken them from their irrational number, and I've countered them with my very own irrational number. But I did it in such a way that it wasn't combative or even sounded like an offer. I just threw out some numbers like, there's no way you take $1, 10,000, 20,000,
Right.
maybe even 50,000. Where do we need to be? And then boom, I open it up and I just back completely off.
Because if you actually said $50,000, like I'd probably be at 50. They're gonna be like, get the hell out of my house.
Yeah, because I'm nowhere close to 50.
Because even if they're at 120 but they're really at 98, and 98 makes sense for you because if you're 100's the number and they give you 98, it's like, well, that's better
boom,
than what
we've
I
got
wanted.
a deal.
But if you said a hard number at 50, they're gonna be like,
yeah,
go outside, get out of here.
Exactly. So I really like that. But if I open up at that 100, they're asking for 98, and if I open up at 100 and they hit 120, what are we supposed to do? Everybody's taught.
Yeah.
Now they're wanting 110. So I got to start out low and we'll work it out there. And if I've got a seller that just truly believes that it's going to be 120, then I'll just bust out the comps. I'll start showing them comps. I'm like, hey, this is why this number is what it is. And if they start tripping out on the repair bids, I'm like, it's going to cost me $43,000 to get this property up to the standards it needs to be to make this property sell for this price. And they're like, oh no, it'll cost you no more than $6,000. Boom. Let's start getting the math out. We'll put down a little spreadsheet. We'll start penciling some numbers. And I'll even get that seller to work with me on that because I am not trying to be devious. I'm not trying to do anything other than get that seller to accept the reality of what's going on here. I'll give them a sheet of paper and a pen and I'm like, well, let's go through this together. And I'll pop open my phone or a laptop and I'll be like, your home's 1,400 square foot. Let's start looking at flooring. This home that you've introduced me to that you think is comparable to yours and it only takes $6,000 to look at that floor. Does that look like real wood? All right, let's look at real wood flooring on Home Depot. That's $375 a foot. $375 times $1,400 is a lot more money than my math can do in my little poor head.
Right.
But let's go ahead and pull out a calculator. All right, let's just say for my poor math reasons, it ends up being $5,000. $5,000, we're not even including labor right now. So we'll just put $5,000 down on the table. How much paint do you think it's going to take to paint the inside and outside of this home? Inside of this home, we're probably going to be looking around 15 gallons. Exterior of this home, probably around 10 to 15 gallons as well. That's 30 gallons of paint that we're going to need. Paint's $40 a gallon. 30 times 40, let's put that in there. That's not including labor. We're just looking at proven facts of pricing that I can show you here on Home Depot. And then as I start adding all the material up, your vanity, your toilets, your bathtubs, your tile, your kitchen cabinets, your appliances, your light fixtures, and then boom, they're starting to see that the material alone's $18,000. And that's how I'm able to take a seller that's just being irrational with their numbers and start pulling them back.
Their own reality. And it's basically you're just doing a seller net sheet because it's very similar to the and I hope this is not your third thing you're going to talk about.
But it's a good one to have.
Which was well, I'll just get a realtor because a realtor can give me more money. It's like, well, let's talk about that. And then you do that same process. Well, if you use a realtor, guess what? I'm going to use a realtor too. So the same fees you're going to have, I'm going to have. And then you just side by side, this is your fees, these are my fees, boom, 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 boom. And then the reality of it is you would make more money if you fixed it up yourself. But do you have the capability of it? Do you have the money for it? Do you have the patience for it? Do you have the time for it? And do you even want to bother with the hassle?
Boom.
Versus my situation where, yes, you're making maybe 10%, maybe 15% less. But guess what? We can be done in a week, 2 weeks. And then that's just going through it. A seller net sheet is basically you're going to have the realtor, all the fees that they would have, all the fees you would have, and show them where they're at, show them where you're at, and line by line. That's way more detailed with what you said with like, hey, let's pull up Home Depot and like, this is this. A lot of times, I know in the home visitors world, we just did the whole, what do you think foundation is going to cost? $10,000. You know what? And always side mini nugget. If they say it's $10,000, it's $10,000. If they don't get in the weeds of arguing a price of them because then you're arguing over something that's not relevant because you can always make up for something else. So and then just go down the list.
Some of the things that Grant taught me, and Grant is an amazing negotiator. If you're not watching Grant Teach Me Something on Wednesdays, he is an amazing negotiator. But on a situation where the foundation, like they do come back at 10 grand, here's a slightly different pivot that I learned from Grant that helped me out. And it also helps build a rapport. And it's like, I'm really thinking that 10 grand might be a good number on the retail side. And you may have even had that quoted on the retail side. I'm a real estate investor. I get this stuff done a little bit cheaper. I could probably get it knocked out for about 7 grand. So let's put 7 grand on there. And when that is done, is giving that seller the understanding that we're here to work with each other. And that gives me the opportunity, though, when they really undercut a number way low, I can be like, oh, let's pull up Home Depot here, because your number, you're saying it's going to cost $800 to paint this house. I'm thinking it's going to cost $3,300 to paint this house.
Yeah, and what you're referring to is like when he's walking the house, he does that a lot, where because like if you don't, and that's why the whole negotiation process is this giant long marathon of a dance, because as you're walking the house, you can be like, oh, don't worry about that hole in the wall, that hole in the ceiling. I can get that done for cheap because I'm an investor. Fast forward, like when I write down it's going to cost me $12,000, well, I've already planned in their head I could do that for cheap.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if $12,000 is cheap, well, how much is that going to make it for me? If he's getting 12, I'm probably going to spend 15. So that's kind of what he was talking about. But
So, yeah.
It's the same thing. But yeah, seller net sheet, going through and just the money effort. But
I really like that, but I want to pause and I want to throw in the fact, and I kind of glanced over, I said to do it, but you might not realize the emphasis and importance of what I said to do. That is, give them the pen and paper.
Oh, yeah.
And get them to write it down, because whenever it's a psychological thing of whenever they actually write it down, and I'm not trying to lie to them. Once again, I'm not sitting here trying to make this sound like I'm using my negotiation prowess to ruin this person's life. I'm using this to bring them back to reality, because the things that I'm teaching you can be used to take advantage of people,
Right.
and they can also be used to help people. You need to be in the boat of helping people. So let's rewind back to that. But if I give them the sheet and they actually write it down, it becomes real to them. The act of writing something out on paper becomes a reality to someone. And if I can get them to write it down off of the things that I can clearly show them on Home Depot, I'm not even putting labor costs on top of that. I can start helping their reality come back to where it needs to be, because if I don't bring them back to reality, the probability of them going to foreclosure is extremely high, because they're stuck on 120 and no investor's offering them 120. And that's why I'm the 19th one to the door.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just the 19th person to the door that knew how to handle the objection.
Yeah, because nobody may have shown them why 120 doesn't work.
They just offered the 100, and when they got told no,
Or even then, they might have told them,
Mhm.
but they may not have shown them. So by giving them the paper, hey, let's walk through this,
Mhm.
and let's do that, and then
So-
that gives them the effort.
so I got to be wary of time. We are pushing on that hour
Yeah.
mark. So I do want to hit one side tangent on this exact same topic. And we discussed a lot of how to pull and close that left brain person.
Right.
What about the emotional person that is there and they're sitting there,
I want my 120.
I want my 120. Well, why? The emotional person's why is going to be different than the left brain person's why. The left and right brains have different reasonings. That person might be like, well, I really need to buy this when I'm done, or I really had a lot of experiences at this house, and I really think that this custom cabinet that was built by my grandfather that's built in here is far more valuable than this home is worth. Like, so
Right.
then I have to, then once one property I closed, I gave them a fair offer, we got it closed. The biggest thing that she didn't want to do with the sale of the home, like the thing that was stopping her from selling the home, was that her memory in that house growing up was how much recognition her mother got for how beautiful her yard was. Her mother was like Better Homes and Gardens, was like the queen of the neighborhood's tour of homes or whatever, because immaculate front yard, beautiful magnolia tree, well manicured front yard. That was her memory of that house as a child. Growing up now, that home has, significantly gone under duress. There's been a lot of problems with that, but she's still mentally connected to that. And the reason she didn't want to sell was that magnolia tree was still in the front yard, and that magnolia tree was way overgrown. It was dropping into the ground, resprouting up new ones, and she just didn't want to let go of that magnolia tree. She wanted that magnolia tree, so she was pricing it at a point that no one would pay for it, so she didn't have to sell it. That was literally what was going on. The way I got that to close was I was like, hey, I saw that you had a whole bunch of tools out in the garage. Is there any chance you got a shovel back there? Boom, went out there, grabbed a shovel, grabbed a trash bag, came into the front yard. And what I told you is the magnolia tree's limbs were getting so far down that they were touching the ground, and those were growing into the ground and shooting new trees up. It was just like boom and boom. It was just taking over. I went out and I grabbed one of those little shoots and I cut it and I dug it up, and there was a bunch of roots attached to it, and I took it to her house, buried it in her front yard, and signed the contract. that was the emotional seller. That was the right brain seller. You find out what that right brain seller is connected to that is pushing them to an improbable price point. You will then be able to cater the conversations to pull them back to a reality where both parties get to win and you get to the closing table.
So before we move to break, I do want to point out, though, 2 quick points. One, some people you're just not going to be able to close. It just is what it is. Anybody that says you can close every deal, they're full of crap. Like, because sometimes somebody is in such a different mental state, you're never going to be able to do anything with them. That being said, let's do tangent before we get a break. That one house where the uncle, the brother, the main person, they did all the work. You see this a lot in Hispanic homes and a lot of Hispanic communities where they've done all the work and they don't recognize that there's 3 different types of brick. There's, where the layout of the floor plan of the house does not make sense to anyone other than that family, and you're going to have to do a complete gut job and you're going to have to do complete exterior work. But their emotional state is, look at this is a badass house, right? So other than just giving up, how do you address that emotional state?
So do you remember that property that you and I looked at about a year and a half ago over there in West Fort Worth, 3 stories, like 4,800 square foot house?
Yeah, it was like an $800,000 house.
Huge house.
Like, oh, we could get it for $500, but we'll probably never sell it.
Because it was like, picture this, parents. For parents that are watching this right now, think of this. 3-story home, 3-story spiral staircase up the middle, grand, elegant, $800,000 house when you look at comps. But when you look at the layout of the house, bedroom number 1, it was only a 2-bedroom house, huge house. Master was on the 3rd floor, and then it had a guest bedroom on the 2nd floor, and there were no bedrooms on the 1st floor. So there was only 2 bedrooms, 800,000 house, huge home, but the layout was horrible.
And like 17 living rooms.
Yeah, the layout was horrible. So we're trying to figure out a way, how can we incorporate a 3rd bedroom into this home so that way it can be functional for a traditional family. And there was just no way to adequately put a 3rd bedroom into that home outside of the 1st floor. Yeah. And who wants their kids on the 1st floor in a walkout basement? That was just a bad deal, and I was just like, no, we can't do that.
Yeah, and that's a completely different show talking about where
sometimes you just have to walk.
If you only look at the numbers look sexy as hell. Because I actually don't think it was 800. I think it was like closer to the mill. Yeah, and a 1 to 1 2.
And we were pulling it for like 3 or 4.
But if we're getting the house for $300,000 to $500,000 like cash, and you put $200 into it, that's a great day.
Oh, we thought we were killing it.
Yeah,
and we showed up, and
and then you show up, and you're just like. And it's like, well, can I move into this? Because I remember you're like, well, shit, I'll move into this. And you're just like, but even then it's like the resale. I want to be stuck with that. Yeah. So again, sometimes you just got to walk away.
Right. So that's a good nugget on its own. So let's hit that next breakup. I don't think I directly addressed the question that you were asking.
The question was basically like when you do have a house where somebody, and if you can have a quick answer, great. If not, we'll just move on. Where I'm emotionally, like I did all the work. I did all the custom work. There's 3 different types of brick. There's the floor plan doesn't make sense.
If I can't get them to acknowledge that that's a problem, then what I would like to do is try and keep myself in as a part of that deal and then try and get an agent to work with them and list it. And after it is set on the market for 90 days and no one's giving them what they want, I am still tied to that. I'm still connected to that. And I can still come back in and I can be like, hey man, what I tried to tell you up front is the general market is not going to accept what you've done to this home. I believe it's beautiful. I believe you've done a lot of very interesting things to this house and I'm intrigued by it. But I need this home to look very vanilla and very complacent with what everybody in this marketplace is trying to buy. That is not what we have here. So what I could do is come back in and offer you what my original offer was once they have came to the conclusion that what I told them was true. The market's not going to accept what you've done to this home.
And that's a great nugget where if you have a seller that's not willing to work with you, not willing to see reality, get your realtor that's on your team to introduce them, because if they are able to sell it, they'll kick you back some kind of referral fee, or maybe they'll kick you back a deal later in reciprocity. And if they're not able to sell it, they'll, keep you informed. Hey, it's still sitting there. You might want to go hit them back in.
Yep.
So let's go for another break. When we come back, we'll get to the 3rd common objection, and we'll go from there. If you like what you see, please subscribe. Please give us some likes. When you like the stuff, when you comment, whether you're on Facebook, whether you're on YouTube, Periscope, listen on a podcast, anytime you actually do click the thumbs up button or make a comment or subscribe, you're basically telling the internet that, hey, this is worthwhile content. So we've got like 60 people watching. I expect at least 60 likes and at least a million gajillion comments. So anyway, thanks again for watching. We'll be right back.
The Propelio Academy, an all-in-one education resource for training in wholesales, subject to wraps, short sales, flips, rentals, BRRRR, property management, and more. Go to propelio.com/academy to get your scholarship today.
Propelio.com. What does Propelio offer? Lead generating websites, access to true MLS comps, off-market lead lists, and deal alerts. Get them all today at Propelio.com.
All right, so we're back from break here. I wanted to take a brief pause. My why for everything that I do is most definitely my family. They are the backbone to why I'm here, the reason why I've been able to become who I've became. I want to say thank you to my wife for putting up with me. I am not an easy man to put up with. I want to say thank you to my daughter, Tyla and Zyla. Both of y'all are the light of my life, man. Coming home and getting to see y'all love and play, it lights my life up. Thank y'all all for being out there and supporting me. And let's move on to this last little thought, and this last thought being objection number 3. Objection number 3 is going to be, I need to ask blank. I need feedback from
My
blank.
wife, my husband, my cousin, my dog,
lawyer, my realtor, my something. You will have this objection hit
somebody
a lot.
who's not in the room at that point in time.
Yes. So what I want to clearly define up front is that if you showed up to this appointment and you did not have the people that you thought were needed to make a decision on that appointment, you did yourself a disservice up front. You really should, while you're setting your appointments, ask this critical question. It's like, is everybody that's needed and involved going to be at this appointment to make a decision? And then if they're like, well, no, I'm an executor of an estate and I've got a sister that lives in Austin, we're in Dallas and she's not going to be able to come up here, so I was just going to show it to all of these people and then hit up my sister and get feedback. I'm like, okay, I understand that your sister can't be there, but is there an option that we might be able to schedule a time where we could put her on since we have the technology these days to do this, that we could put them on a phone conference or a video conference, very simply from our phones, where I might be able to address this conversation as a group and handle this together.
Because the telephone game stuff gets lost in translation, and then I want to make sure what I'm offering it's properly conveyed.
And because if all I'm doing this entire time is closing you, and I've got an entire total separate party that may have their very own objections and have their own questions that aren't going to be resolved, then I've lost half the negotiation. And remember, this negotiation isn't a negotiation to take advantage or deceive. It's a negotiation to get to the closing table. We are all trying to get to the closing table. We all have a mutual interest included. You want to close, that person wants to close, I want to close. Well, let's get this resolved. If I'm available to answer and address those objections, then I don't have to deal with going through your objections and then you going back to Susie and being like, hey, Susie, this is what's going on. And then Susie being like, well, you didn't do this, you didn't do that. And it inevitably happens. So I want all parties involved when I show up. So let's say I do show up and I find out that there's a party that's not there that should be involved. Like, I really need to just talk to my husband about this. We're going to say, well, you know what? That's great. I actually need to run some numbers and catch up on a real quick phone call. I'm going to hop out real quick. Give me just like maybe 10, 15 minutes to take care of some stuff in my car. And if you would, just give your husband a call. And I'll be very direct like that. It's not even so much asking because I don't want it to be a stall tactic. I'll just very directly just be like, how about you hop on the phone with your husband real quick? I'm going to go catch up on a couple calls. I've got to talk with my team besides. I really kind of offered more than what I should have, and I really need to talk to my team to make sure that I can actually hit that price. So let me go confirm my numbers as well, because what I'm doing is what we're going to call a takeaway. And once again, I'm not using this to be devious or take advantage. I'm using that to get to the closing table with a number that we're all good at. I said that I offered a little bit more than what I really thought I could, and I need to go confirm with my partners that it is. So now what I'm saying is that offer might start going down. that'll motivate them to get the husband or the wife or the lawyer, the friend. I don't care if it's a lawyer. I'm not doing anything shady. I don't care if you talk to a real estate agent. I'm not doing anything shady. But whoever you talk to, let's have an opportunity to all talk together.
Let's do it now while we have an opportunity to make this happen.
Because what might happen is she might get on the phone, or he or she might get on the phone with a real estate agent. And that real estate agent says, "Oh, honey, that guy is taking advantage of you all day long. I know I can get you $120,000 for that house. I don't know why he'd ever offer you $100,000 for that house. $120,000 all day long." Well, real estate agent, have you ever actually walked into this house before? I know that you know that this neighborhood's a $120,000 neighborhood, but have you been inside the house? And if I got an agent hopping in my seller's ear saying a lot of things that aren't necessarily true, it'll at least give me the opportunity to shut down some of these false things that are being put into the seller's head. And I will gladly do that with the seller standing right there. If the seller wants to hop on the phone with a lawyer, great. I would much rather that seller get on the phone with a lawyer while I'm there, because the seller is going to not necessarily completely understand how I do business or what I do. And the lawyer is going to be asking questions that the seller may not necessarily be able to directly answer. And if I have the opportunity to directly address that lawyer's like, "What are you doing here?" Okay, well, what I'm doing is an assignment of contract, or I'm doing this, or I'm doing that. I'm giving the seller a lease back. I'm doing this, I'm doing that. And I'll give this lawyer the opportunity to interject their opinion into this conversation. And if I can't convince this lawyer that it's in the best interest for their potential client and or client, well, then maybe this wasn't the deal for me, because I'm not going to force you into doing something. And if your legal advice is telling you no, and I can't convince your legal advice that doesn't know anything about real estate that your house is going to cost $30,000 to repair, well, then I'm not going to force you to do something.
I think a huge takeaway there, or the key takeaway, is because I know, like in some sort of sales programs, like if you watch Wolf of Wall Street or the oil and gas phone jockeys, they're like, "Why do you need to talk to your wife? Why do you need to talk? You're not man enough." It's like, no. Talk to your wife, talk to your husband, talk to this, talk to that. I'll be right out, and then basically you're saying you want them to talk to everybody that you want them to talk to, but you want the opportunity to address that head on.
Yes, so that way there's no miscommunication there.
Right.
And I do believe, like, as much as I love The Wolf of Wall Street, absolutely love that movie, they were intentionally deceiving people to take advantage of. And that's what I want to address into this community of people that are watching right now. If we're all out there deceiving people, we will become regulated so fast that it's impossible for us to ever do this business again. We have to approach this business as a business, and businesses don't deceive people. And if they are, they shouldn't be in business.
And real quick, shout out, I know Christopher Coy, he was saying that Max Maxwell, he actually says this a lot about how when he's on the phone setting an appointment, he's like, "I'm coming there to buy the house. Is everybody going to be there that needs to sign?"
I love that.
You know, it's very direct, very in your face. I know Grant, like a lot of times when people try to, he basically just flat out says, like, "Look, this is a business for me. The likelihood of me ever coming back is very little. So we need to make sure we're taking care of this right in and now."
So that's one of the things that I love about Grant is he creates what's called an authority figure. So right there when I'm on the phone with you, it's like, is everybody that needs to be involved to sign off on this transaction there? So that way when I get there, we can address all the issues, right then and there. Because I've got 9 other appointments that day, I don't have an opportunity to just turn right back around. By stating, I need everybody there so I can handle this. I've got 9 other properties to look at. Something that Christopher Coy brought up that Corey does a lot is, hey, I've got 3 other properties to look at right after this, and I've got X amount of money. I'm going to buy, like today, I'm going to buy at least 1 house.
Right.
But if I buy that one, I may not have enough money to buy yours, without pulling in a loan. And if I have to pull in a loan, then that's going to cost me more money. I was planning on closing with my own cash, but that's going to change my offer.
What you're referring to is Christopher Coy was saying, Corey's line, I've got X amount of right now, and I'm looking 3 more houses after this there on the comments feed. So sorry.
So that's a key thing for getting that addressed up front. Before I ever show up to the appointment, I need to make sure that the people that can make decisions will be there. And if they're not, can I get them on a video conference? Or if I show up and I'm sprung, oh, well, I thought everybody was going to be here. Can we get them on the phone and just push hard for that? And it's like, hey, I'll gladly step out. In fact, I've got to talk with everybody in the office because as of right now, I'm starting to get a little concerned that I'm offering too much on this. I'm really trying to work my best to get an offer that's acceptable to you. But at the same time, I need to double check my own numbers because this offer's far, far, far higher than what I really wanted to be at. So boom, I'll separate, allow them to address the conversation. I'll come back in. I now have some dialogue created between the two of them, and then I'll approach it again. I'll be like, well, can we just get them on the phone? Because they want some of that private time to say the things that they don't necessarily want me to hear. I'll let them talk. I'll come back in. I'll be like, can we hop on this 3-way call? And then boom, address it right then and there. And it's like, all right, so if we're all good with that, can I get you to sign here? Can I get you to DocuSign there? Have my laptop there, Wi-Fi enabled, so I can address all this there. Boom, contract, go. Go buy 3 more that day. It's all about overcoming the hurdles and going back to the gates. Like, you know, you got somebody pressing on a gate, open it up. If somebody wants to talk to somebody, don't try and stop them.
Yeah.
Allow them to talk. And then as they're moving down that path, just follow in behind them.
And it's funny though, it's like, because that's such a simple concept, but ultimately, every single person you talk to has their own head, heart, gut, has their own left brain, right brain, has their own decision-making process, and you need to be able to go one by one by one by one. I mean, in a perfect world, you could hit them all in one offer and be done.
And that's where the great negotiators come in, like those FBI negotiators. That
Yeah.
Their job is, oops, I didn't negotiate so well today, your head got blown off. Those people are pro negotiators. But like on our side, it's like, you know, on mine, I'm open. I'm not the best negotiator there ever was. I've got the people I'm good at closing. But you find those people that are true pros, they can see anybody and just boom.
But my point being is like, you just got to go one. You literally just have to address everybody, and like, okay, I've got Daniel's this, I've got Tommy's this, I've got Travion's this, and and you just go through one by one. Versus if I only do you, I'm like, cool, I got a contract. Oh, I got to talk to Tommy. You don't need to talk to Tommy. Well, then you just all that rapport you built, you killed it because you're doing something shady. Cool, let's get Tommy. Where's Tommy at? Let's go. And then Tommy's like, well, I need to talk to Travion. Great, where's Travion? Travion, let's talk to Travion. Boom. And then you just hit, and literally you just got to go down that list of where am I going to move? The money's not enough. You know, call back to earlier in this episode. You know, and literally just hit by line by line. So it's very relevant and very, very straightforward.
I like it. I love it. And
you want some more of it?
True negotiation. I almost went there. True negotiation is an art. And it's something that we should all practice. It's all something that we have to survive to make it in this world. We're always constantly negotiating, just regardless of what it is. We're in negotiations all day, every day. Even like, you definitely know you're in negotiations if you're trying to ask my wife what's for dinner. You know, it's like, what are we going to eat for dinner? You're always negotiating. So get good at this. Learn to practice it. You can negotiate to be devious. You can negotiate to help. Learn to make sure you're on the helping side of this coin. Let's go out there. Let's do business. Let's have fun. And let's hit some final comments.
Yeah, let's hit some comments. So Jay Barrara, negotiating is a skill and being self-aware is important. Absolutely. I totally agree with that one. A lot of love. Tyler says hi. A lot of comments. Thanks, guys. Thanks for comments. After the show, we'll kind of go through the comments. And exactly, Sonia. Want some more of it. We'll go through and hit all the comments. But that's the cool thing about what we do here at Propelio TV is the community aspect. So if you see a comment, address it yourself. Like if you have your own thoughts, we want that inner comment dialogue.
Let's help each other.
Help each other. Like so if somebody's asking a question or somebody says something really cool, don't wait for Ryan or Daniel or Propelio to comment on it. Comment on it yourself. You know.
And speaking of community, who else coming to the May 14th Propelio event?
Party.
Yeah.
Hopefully everybody. It's going to be fun. Actually,
you should fly in. It's worth it.
We actually have the most signed up at this early. We have the most we've ever had signed up.
It's going to be a badass
event. I haven't really conveyed that to the team yet.
So for those that don't know what's going on May 14th, we're having a full event on raising capital. Mm-hmm. Everybody out there needs more money. I don't care how much money you got. You need more money. So we've got Troy Fullwood,
Corey Peterson
flying in. We've got both of these are flying in to speak.
You got Eddie Speed.
All of these people have raised massive amounts of capital.
Will
Crozier has raised. Oh wow!
Yeah. So what we're doing is we're doing 2 feature presentations one by Troy, one by Corey.
I'm excited.
And then we're gonna have a panel.
Can I sit in the crowd?
Yes, you can. You own the company.
I'm sorry. I'm excited.
The panel is going to be Will. It's going to be Eddie. It's going to be Troy. It's going to be Corey. And then moderated by Jason Bible. Hold
on for everybody that's still watching. How much money has Troy Fullwood raised?
A lot.
He says a lot. The number that's sticking in my head, and
Is it-
I may gross.
I don't know what the number is, but I know it starts with a B.
Yes, and I was about to say I might grossly miss $2 billion this man has
Taxes,
raised.
yeah.
So if you are looking at how these pros are doing it, Will Crozier, I know Will Crozier is raised on the bottom side of 15 million to the high side of 30 million, at the very least in my own thoughts. This man knows what raising capital is like. I know that you got Corey Peterson. I had a conversation when we were out in Arizona. That man knows how to raise capital. So I'm extremely excited about seeing this panel.
So we have a lot of people that, so if you're in Texas, definitely it's worth the drive. It's worth the small flight. We've had people flying from Arizona. We've people flying from California.
Japan.
We've had people, we did have a guy flying from Japan. We've had guys flying from Boston. So wherever you're in the country, if you feel like you know what, here's another open invite. If you run a REIA anywhere in the country and you want to see, I mean, this is going to sound braggadocious, but if you want to see how it's done right,
if you want to invite us out to throw a party, we get about 500 to 600 people a month.
yeah, come to ours, see what it's like. Anyway, that's what we got.
I say we, this man.
So, as far any updates on the apps and those things?
Oh man, I am just.
I'm
ready to
going to call you out for a minute because we have meetings where I'm like, hey, we need to get out on Propelio TV and tell everybody what's going on with the app. No, I don't want to show anybody until it's ready. 1 week later, Corey Thompson, you're showing Corey Thompson because you're bragging. And Corey's like, hold on, Facebook Live. I'm like, bro.
So the Propelio app was supposed to have been launched Friday. Right now, I'm trying to get a feedback loop put into the app so that way you can send support tickets from the app. Because with us being in beta, there will be some initial bugs that pop up. And I want to make sure that y'all have the direct ability to provide feedback. So that should be getting implemented today or tomorrow. And I am putting my foot down. I don't care if it's perfect or not. The end of this week, that app is coming out. It is coming out. I don't care if I have to rip heads off. That app is coming out the door.
That doesn't sound like 30 to 90 days to me. That sounds like 4 days.
So yeah, the app is coming out. It'll be in beta. The Driving for Dollars feature will be there. All of the functionality pieces will be there, but not everything will be functional because we're still coding pieces on the back end. But if you want to drive for dollars and create lists, definitely there. If you want to see the places that you've driven on the map, that is definitely there. The skip tracing, probably in the next 30 days. The direct mail, probably in the next 30, 45 days. Voice notes, phone calls, the ability to do video and pictures and attach that all to your property, probably in the next 3 weeks.
Sounds like it's a great time to be a part of Propelio.
Yep, we're looking forward to it.
So, and on the back end, Propelio.com, if you're looking for lead lists, you're looking for websites, looking for access to comps, go to Propelio.com right now for 7-day free trial.
Boom.
As far as, is there a list that people could sign up for updates of, hey, are we emailing people out?
If you go there right now, Propelio is not national yet, but we are national in the next 60 to 90 days. But what I can do for everybody watching right now, because I still got a bunch of people watching right now, I'm going to hook y'all all up with the deal of a lifetime. What we are doing right now for everybody that is national, that wants to experience the Propelio community, but we're not in their area yet, I give them a free lead generating website, completely free. You show up to Propelio.com, you sign up for the Pro plan. No credit card required. This isn't a credit card exchange. Go to Propelio.com/pricing, sign up for the Pro plan, no credit card required, and then send in a message to support and say, hey guys, I'm not in your area yet, but I want that free lead generating website that Daniel said he'd give me, and I'll give you that lead generating website for the next 90 plus days until the full product is available in your area and you can test it out. So if you don't have a lead generating website for your business yet, if you're still using Gmail, Yahoo, Hotmail, if you're still using that kind of stuff, and you want to see what Propelio can really do for you, go check out the website's feature. I'll hook you up for it for free for at least the next 3 months.
Yeah.
And I'll let you start experience how Propelio can help you out.
So for clarity's sake, if you're listening to on a podcast, if you're watching on YouTube, today is April 22nd, 2019, and if you want a free website, that is completely free
for the next 90 days.
For not the next 90 days. Well, up until the point we have a national product. At that point, then there's going to be kind of probably a changeover process of like, would you like to keep this? If so, you need to start paying for it.
So there you go. So if you need a lead generating website, if you need to get rid of your @Gmail, @Yahoo, your @Hotmail email address, you start creating a little bit of authority by having those branded email addresses, having your own website so these sellers can look you up, start driving traffic there. Go to Propelio.com right now. No tech experience needed. 18 seconds later, you'll have
And
a
then
website.
as far as to how, and speaking of no tech experience, if you're like, well, Daniel said something about open up a chat support, there's a little chat bubble at the bottom right-hand screen at Propelio.com. Just click on that and be like, hey, yo, Daniel said I get some free shit.
There you go.
There you go. All right, so that's the show today. Please, again, like, share, comment, drop. What was your favorite tip? That's the call to action for the day. What was your favorite part? What was your favorite negotiating? What was your favorite
What did you learn
rebuttal?
today? What was the thing that you walked away from today saying Propelio TV was worth watching?
Yeah, please drop that in the comments. If what you want to see more, drop that in the comments. If you could, share this to your LinkedIn community. Share
Somebody
this to
gave me a angry face.
Who gave you an angry face?
Somebody gave me an angry face.
Where's the where did you see an angry?
You know how they
face?
give you the hearts and the thumbs?
Oh
I want to see a lot more hearts and thumbs because I just saw an angry face.
This man.
Somebody gave us an angry
This
face.
man. You can get 1 million likes, 1 million loves, and you get one angry, and that's okay. We're about to just end the show, but before we end the show, I do want to say this. Our YouTube is starting to get exponentially bigger and bigger and growing, and the amount of likes we get is growing and growing and growing, but yet maybe we get 3 or 5 or 10 dislikes to a proportion of 100 likes or 1,000 likes.
That hurts my feelings.
And that's what you focus on.
That hurts my feelings. So everybody that is watching on Facebook right now, take the time to go over to YouTube and check out our channel on YouTube. YouTube has a lot of extra little benefits that you get for watching on YouTube. So take the time to go to YouTube, subscribe to us there, and then hit the little bell icon so you're notified. And I promise you'll never miss another episode of Daniel up here hating those angry faces.
And again, you haven't been trolled on YouTube yet.
I'm pretty sure I probably have, and y'all have done a really good job of filtering me from it.
I get trolled at least once a month. Oh, I do get more. Shut up.
All right, guys, we're closing it out here.
Hodor. I hate you, Eddie. Anyway.
All right, guys. Good time. Much
see you
love. I
next
hope you
time.
enjoyed the show. Drop in the comments what you liked.
Propelio TV is sponsored by Noble Mortgage and Investments, Batch Skip Tracing, Think Multifamily, CreativeCashflow.com, and Lifeonaire.
Hey everybody, I'm Ryan with Propelio. If you like what you saw, please subscribe. Turn on those notifications and stick around for more. We have tons of content like this all over our channel. So if you want to learn more about real estate investing, stick around, watch Propelio TV.